Today, let's explore a fascinating puzzle from the world of philosophy, the problem of universals. Imagine you're looking at two apples. Both are red, round and juicy. But have you ever wondered if the redness or the roundness exists beyond these apples? This is the core of the problem of universals. Philosophers have debated this question for centuries, from Plato to Aristotle. The big question is, do these shared properties, like color and shape, exist independently of the objects? And if they do, what is the nature of that existence? Let's break it down. Universals are qualities or relations found in multiple entities. For example, if all cup holders are circular, circularity could be seen as a universal property of cup holders. Or consider two daughters who are female offspring of Frank. The qualities of being female, offspring, and of Frank are universal properties shared by both daughters. Universals can be anything, being human, red, liquid, solid, big or small. Philosophers agree that we can talk and think about universals, but they disagree on whether universals actually exist beyond our thoughts and language. Some say universals are real and exist independently. Others argue they are just concepts in our minds, with no existence outside of thought and speech. Plato believed that there was a sharp distinction between the world of perceivable objects and the world of universals, or forms, known as eidos. Imagine you're looking at a beautiful painting. According to Plato, what you're seeing is just a mere shadow of a higher reality. In his view, one could only have mere opinions about the physical objects we perceive, but one could have true knowledge about the forms. For Plato, it was not possible to have knowledge of anything that could change or was particular. Knowledge to him had to be forever unfailing and general. That's why he argued that the world of forms is the real world, much like sunlight, while the sensible world we perceive is only imperfectly or partially real, akin to shadows. This Platonic realism, however, differs sharply from modern forms of idealism. Plato denied that the eternal forms were mere mental artifacts. Instead, he believed they existed in a realm of their own, independent of human thought. One of the earliest critiques of Plato's realism came from Diogenes of Sinope, a figure known for his sharp wit. He famously said, "I've seen Plato's cups and table, but not his cupness and tableness," pointing out the difficulty of perceiving these abstract forms in the tangible world. Unlike Plato, Aristotle had a different take on the nature of universals. He transformed Plato's abstract forms into what he called formal causes, the blueprints or essences of individual things. Imagine for a moment that you're walking through a forest and you come across an oak tree. According to Aristotle, this specific oak tree is a member of a species and shares common traits with all other oak trees. Its oakness is a universal that is part of it. But unlike Plato, Aristotle believed these universals exist within the objects themselves rather than in a separate realm. While Plato idealized geometry and abstract forms, Aristotle emphasized the study of nature and living beings. He believed that understanding the natural world was key to grasping universals. In his work, Categories, he used the principle of predication to explain how universal terms apply to many individual instances. For example, man is a universal term that can be predicated of many individuals, whereas Callias is a singular term referring to a specific person. Aristotle's approach was more empirical than Plato's. He believed that by studying the natural world, we could come to understand the universals that underlie it. After traversing the worlds of Plato and Aristotle, we now step into the rich tapestry of medieval philosophy, and our guide for this journey is Boethius. Boethius framed the problem around the nature of genera and species. Do they exist independently in the real world or merely as mental concepts? Are they corporeal or incorporeal? Do they exist separately from or within sensory objects? He argued that for universals to exist, they must apply entirely and simultaneously to multiple particulars. Imagine you see multiple red apples. According to Boethius, the redness must be fully present in each apple to be considered a universal. However, he reasoned that universals cannot be mind-independent because a quality cannot be both one thing and common to many without conflicting with the notion of substance. Boethius faced a dilemma. If universals are purely mental constructs, they are mere abstractions and not true representations of reality. If they exist in reality, we encounter the problem of real universals again. His solution? The mind can separate in thought what is not separable in reality. This means universals are not out there in the real world, nor purely constructs of the mind. They are the mind's way of thinking about particulars in an abstract manner. Boethius's insights influenced many medieval philosophers, including Thomas Aquinas and Duns Scotus. Aquinas, following Aristotle, made a clear distinction between the essence and existence of things, while Scotus posited only a formal distinction, maintaining that universals exist within the things they exemplify. Scotus argued for the reality of universals, opposing both nominalism and conceptualism. He believed properties like redness and roundness are mind-independent entities. Scotus's commentary on Porphyries explored how the intellect recognizes the shared nature of qualities in individual instances. On the other side of the debate, nominalism, led by thinkers like Roscoelinus and William of Ockham, argued that universals are merely verbal constructs without inherent existence. Ockham asserted that universals are products of human abstraction and exist only in the mind. He believed that considering universals as real leads to contradictions. We now venture into the more recent past to explore how modern and contemporary philosophers grappled with the problem of universals. Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, the 19th century German philosopher, extensively addressed the relationship between universals and particulars. Hegel believed they exist in a dialectical relationship, meaning one exists only in relation to and reference to the other. He explained that parts are independent, yet only meaningful in their relation to the whole, highlighting the interconnectedness and opposition inherent in their togetherness. Next, we turn to John Stuart Mill, a 19th century British philosopher who tackled the problem of universals while critiquing Sir William Hamilton's philosophy. Mill argued that forming a concept doesn't involve isolating attributes from others, but rather recognizing them as part of a larger whole. He contended that while we can focus on certain attributes to the exclusion of others, this concentration is temporary and doesn't separate the attributes from the object itself. Mill's view suggests that universals, like the concept of manhood, are significant only when considered as part of the larger agglomeration of attributes that make up an individual object. Charles Sanders Peirce, the 19th century American logician and father of pragmatism, also weighed in on the debate. Peirce criticized George Berkeley's denial of general conceptions, arguing that any mental fact functioning like a universal is essentially a universal. He proposed that practical utility, rather than philosophical distinctions, determines the existence of universals. Peirce also held that general facts, or thirdness, are real and exist independently of the mind. William James, influenced by Peirce, acknowledged the existence of general ideas as a psychological fact, but remained a nominalist in his ontology. James challenged the philosophical tradition's emphasis on universals, arguing that knowledge of particulars is more valuable because the things of worth are concrete and singular. He posited that universals only help us reason about individual things, rather than possessing intrinsic value. Several philosophers responded to James' challenge. Richard M. Weaver, a conservative philosopher, argued that nominalism led to modern decadence, viewing the acceptance of nominalism as a pivotal event in Western culture. W.O. Quine, an American philosopher, explored the problem of universals by examining the epistemological implications rather than proposing a resolution. He noted that certain types of discourse presuppose universals, forcing nominalists to reject such discourse. Nino Cocchiarella, a logician, argued that realism is the best response to logical paradoxes that arise from nominalism. Cocchiarella adopted Platonism to avoid these paradoxes, despite Plato's own acceptance of paradox in his forms. David Mallet Armstrong, an Australian philosopher, used the concept of universals to construct a naturalistic and scientifically realist ontology. Armstrong criticized various nominalist theories and non-realist accounts, advocating for a realist perspective. Finally, Roger Penrose, a contemporary mathematician, contended that the foundations of mathematics necessitate a Platonic view. He argued that mathematical truth is absolute, external, and eternal, existing independently of human criteria. Penrose's stance underscores the timeless and objective nature of mathematical objects. As we can see, the problem of universals has continued to challenge thinkers throughout history, leading to a rich tapestry of perspectives that span centuries. Each philosopher, from Hegel to Penrose, has added new dimensions to this enduring debate. So which of these modern and contemporary views resonates with you? Are you more inclined towards the interconnectedness of Hegel, the pragmatic utility of Peirce, or the scientific realism of Armstrong? Let us know in the comments below.